My name is Camilla, and 3 days after I buried my husband, his sister stood in my living room and demanded the keys to my house. The service had emptied the rooms but not the air. Black coats brushed the hallway walls. Sympathy cards crowded the piano. Half a dozen casserole dishes steamed on the counter, their lids fogged, their labels written with careful hands. Every chair looked tired. I felt hollow and heavy at the same time. Melanie did not knock. She entered as if the door owed her a favor. Heels struck the wood. Perfume cut through the scent of lilies. She did not lower her voice out of respect. She did not lower her eyes out of love. She carried a narrow folder and a colder smile. "You can stop performing," she said. "This house is not yours." He promised it to family. I am family. I was still wearing the black dress from the graveside. It hung wrong on my shoulders. My hands would not warm. "Leave," I said. "Today is not the day." "Today is exactly the day," she answered. She placed the folder on the coffee table. "He wrote the will years before he met you. He never changed it. Everything returns to blood. That means me." For a moment my mind refused the meaning. I had heard my husband, Daniel, speak about paperwork many times. He told me it was handled. He told me I was safe. He told me, during nights with rain on the windows, that we were not a couple built on chance. "Show me," I said. She flipped the folder open. Inside lay a single page with an old bank logo and a notary seal. The language was plain. The signature was Daniel's, or an imitation better than most eyes would notice. The date was a decade old. "You have 2 weeks to vacate," Melanie said. "I will not renew pity after that." "I lived here with him," I said. "I nursed him on that sofa when the fever would not break. I planted the tree out back when his mother died. He would never cut me out while a pen still worked in his hand." "He is gone," she said. "What he would or would not do is a ghost. The law is not sentimental, Camilla. Pack." I stared at the page until the lines wavered. The seal looked real, but grief bends the eyes. I set the document down and steadied my voice. "If this is genuine, a new will can override it. If a new will exists, you are trespassing on my life. Either way, I will not hand you a house because you speak like a hammer." She leaned closer, breath sweet and sharp. "You were always temporary. Everyone knew it. He kept the important things where they belong." "The important things?" I asked. "Like his marriage?" She smiled without warmth. "Do not make this moral. Make it simple. 2 weeks. Behind her, our neighbor Mrs. Alvarez hovered near the doorway with an empty dish. She heard enough to lower her eyes and retreat. The humiliation stung more than the threat. Melanie tapped the page once with a painted nail. "There will be lawyers," she said. "There will be court. I will not hesitate. Grief is not a shield." "Neither is greed," I said. She straightened, adjusted her sleeve, and walked toward the door as if a camera followed. "Sort out your keepsakes. Leave the rest. I am not unkind." When the door closed, the house made a small noise like a sigh. I stood still until the clock struck once and the sound told me time was moving even if I was not. I wanted to cry. I did not. I wanted to scream. I did not. I wanted to call Daniel and ask him why a woman in a black dress had to negotiate her home with a relative who enjoyed the taste of power. Instead, I cleaned. I stacked dishes. I wiped ring marks from the table. Doing quiet things kept the noise out of my head. On the piano, I lined the cards in a straight row. He was kind. He was brave. He loved you. The words looked true and impossible at once. After dusk, I walked into his study. The room smelled faintly of cedar and ink. A photograph of us at the lake leaned against a stack of old ledgers. His desk was neat, almost military. The bottom right drawer was locked, as it had always been. I sat in his chair. My fingers found the worn spot on the arm where his wedding band had rubbed the wood. "You told me I was safe," I said to a man who could not answer. "If you meant it, leave me a way to prove it." In the closet stood a small fireproof box. Inside that, a bundle of keys sat on a leather loop. One key did not match the rest. It was thin brass and unmarked. I tried it in the drawer. Turned with a soft click. The drawer held very little. A black fountain pen. A flat stone from the lake. A sealed envelope with my name on it in his handwriting. Beneath the envelope lay a small brass key unlike the first, with teeth cut in a strange pattern, and a paper tag tied to it with twine. The tag said only one word, basement. My heartbeat quickened. I broke the seal on the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded twice. I unfolded it and found a note written in Daniel's steady hand. If you are reading this, something went wrong faster than I could fix it. Do not trust verbal promises. Do not trust Melanie. The file you need is not in this house. Use the basement key. Then follow the dates. Start with the day we planted the tree. I read the lines twice, then a third time. The study felt smaller. The night pressed closer against the windows. Somewhere outside, a car idled and moved on. I took the basement key and walked down the hall. Each step sounded like a statement. The basement door opened with a dry groan. Cool air met my face. The light switch hummed and flickered to life. The concrete steps looked steeper than they had last month. At the bottom, beside the water heater, sat a narrow metal cabinet I had never opened. The key slid in and turned. Inside, empty shelves waited. Only a single index card lay at the back. On the card, in Daniel's hand, was a date written in full words, and the name of a bank I had not thought about since the first year of our marriage. The card also held a safe deposit box number, underlined twice, and a warning in neat script. If Melanie asks for the deed, it is because she knows what is in this box. Go in daylight. Do not go alone. The card burned a hole in my palm. A bank name. A box number. A warning. Daniel's words were clear even in death. If Melanie wanted my home, it was because she knew what hid behind this trail. I barely slept that night. Each creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps. Each car outside felt like headlights aimed at me. I stared at the ceiling until the faint gray of dawn leaked through the curtains. When I finally sat up, the house looked foreign. His absence weighed more than his presence ever had. By 8 I was dressed. Black jeans, a jacket zipped tight, hair tied back. I slipped the key and card into my pocket and called the only person I could trust without question. Elaine, I said when she answered. My best friend since high school, steady as stone. I need you to come with me. It's about Daniel. And it's about Melanie. She didn't hesitate. I'm on my way. We drove across town in silence, the city waking around us. At every red light, my fingers pressed the card. The date on it wasn't random. It was from the spring Daniel and I planted the oak tree behind the house. A season of beginnings. Why tie the box to that memory? At the bank, the marble floors echoed too loud. A manager in a gray suit led us downstairs, past steel doors and security cameras. My hand shook as I slid the key into the box lock. It clicked open with a sound that made my stomach lurch. Inside were folders. Thick. Labeled with dates. Each one tied to business transactions I had never heard Daniel speak of. I pulled the top folder. Inside were photocopies of property deeds, not for our house, but for 3 smaller rentals spread across the city. His name was on every line. My name on none. At the bottom of the stack was another envelope, marked in bold ink. For Camilla only. I opened it with Elaine watching, her eyes wide. Inside lay photographs. Daniel at a restaurant table with Melanie. Not once but many times across years. Not casual dinners. Documents between them. Sign checks. Their heads leaned close, their faces serious. Each picture was dated and time-stamped. Elaine covered her mouth. He was working with her. My chest tightened. The betrayal cut deeper than the will itself. He hadn't just left a loophole. He had built a parallel life. One where his sister sat at the table while I sat at home, blind and loyal. The last photo hit the hardest. Daniel and Melanie shaking hands in a notary office. The same logo as the will she had shown me. My pulse roared. My husband's funeral was barely cold, and already his ghost whispered a darker truth. Melanie's claim was not some whim. It was planned, coordinated, signed under his hand, or forged with his help. Elaine touched my arm. Camilla, you need a lawyer. I nodded, slipping the photographs back into the envelope. Not just a lawyer. I need proof that whatever game they played, it wasn't legal. If he betrayed me in business, he will not bury me in death. As we walked back through the marble hall, a shadow crossed our path. Melanie. She leaned against the pillar, her lips curved like she had been waiting all morning. Curiosity is dangerous, she said softly. Those boxes are not meant for widows with too much time on their hands. My stomach dropped. She knew. She had been watching. Elaine bristled. You followed us? Melanie smiled, unbothered. I don't need to follow what I already control. Enjoy your little discoveries, Camilla. They won't change what's written in the will. She brushed past me, perfume thick in the air, and whispered so only I could hear. You think Daniel was yours? He never was. You were just the public version. Her words cut through bone. When I stepped outside, my phone buzzed with a blocked number. A text appeared. Stop digging or you'll end up where he is. The message stayed on my screen long after Melanie's perfume faded from the air. Stop digging or you'll end up where he is. My throat tightened. It wasn't just a threat. It was a warning meant to paralyze me. Elaine read it over my shoulder. Camilla, this isn't just family greed. Someone is scared you'll find what Daniel left. Scared or angry, either way I couldn't stop. If Melanie was willing to appear at the bank in broad daylight, she was bold enough to gamble with intimidation. That meant the truth was close. We drove back to my house. The oak tree outside rustled as if it knew secrets. Daniel's note had said, start with the day we planted the tree. The safe deposit box wasn't the end. It was a beginning. I pulled out the oldest folder from the bank box. Inside was a ledger of payments. Large sums. Some marked as renovations. Others as consulting. Names I didn't recognize, shell companies maybe. Elaine leaned over my shoulder, frowning. These aren't random. Look. Every payment aligns with a date near your anniversaries. My chest sank. While I planned dinners and bought him gifts, he was funneling money somewhere else. And Melanie had her fingerprints on every transaction. That night I started a wall. Old school, the kind detectives use in films. I pinned photocopies of the will. The restaurant photos. The notary handshake. Daniel's letter. Every time a pin went in, the betrayal felt sharper, but the pattern clearer. Elaine came back the next morning with coffee and her laptop. I've got something. Look at this. She turned the screen toward me. It was a property listing for a downtown office suite. The landlord's name matched one of the shell companies in the folder. Guess who the registered contact is? Melanie. She nodded. And guess who paid the deposit 10 years ago in cash? Daniel. Piece by piece, the life I thought I knew fractured. I remembered how he used to come home late, explaining investor dinners or long commutes. I believed him because marriage is supposed to run on belief. Now I saw the truth. Every late night had been spent building something for them, not for me. We decided to visit the office. The building smelled of dust and old paint. The suite was locked, blinds drawn. But on the door was a small metal plaque with a corporate name I had never seen, Whitestone Advisory. Elaine jotted it down. This could be the hub. If we get inside, we'll know more. On the way out, a man in a dark jacket passed us, glancing too long, his eyes catching mine. He didn't look like a tenant. He looked like a shadow meant to follow. My gut twisted. At home I called Mara, an attorney I had met through a friend years ago. Her voice was brisk. Camilla, wills can be challenged, but forged documents are another matter. If you suspect fraud, you need proof stronger than emotion. Get me signatures. Get me dates. Get me inconsistencies. I have files, I said. But I need more. She paused. Then be careful. Whoever sent that message isn't bluffing. If your husband hid assets, people have a stake in keeping them hidden. That night, I searched through Daniel's study again. I pulled out drawer after drawer, searching for anything overlooked. In the corner of the lowest drawer, taped under the wood, was a flash drive. My hand shook as I slid it into Elaine's laptop. Folders filled the screen. Scans of checks, receipts, signed letters. And then a file labeled Final Draft, Will. My breath caught. I opened it. The will was addressed to me. Everything left in my name. Clear, legal, updated a year before his death. Elaine's eyes widened. Camilla, this changes everything. If we prove this is authentic, Melanie's copy is worthless. But as I scrolled to the bottom, my blood ran cold. The signature space was empty. No seal. No notary stamp. Just his typed name waiting. The will that could save me was unfinished. Before I could close the file, the laptop screen flickered, and a remote message popped up. You should not have opened this. The flash drive's glow felt like a live wire in the room. That single file, Daniel's unfinished will, was both salvation and despair. Proof yet incomplete. A weapon without a blade. And the warning on the screen, "You should not have opened this," pulsed like a threat aimed directly at me. Elaine slammed the laptop shut. "Camilla, we can't keep doing this alone. Whoever is watching, they're already inside this mess. We need allies." She was right. Fear only grew in silence. I called Mara the lawyer and told her everything, the folders, the photos, the draft will. She didn't waste words. "Bring me copies. I'll cross-reference signatures. If your husband left a valid draft, even unsigned, it still establishes intent. That matters in court." But I needed more than legal theory. I needed protection. The block number text still burned in my phone. Someone out there wanted me to quit. So I made my second call to Detective Harris, a retired cop I once helped during a neighborhood watch. He still owed me a favor. "Harris," I said when he answered, "I need eyes. Quiet ones. Someone sending threats." He exhaled into the receiver. "Tell me where and when." By evening we met in a diner at the edge of town. Harris wore a brown jacket, his hair grayer than I remembered. He listened as I laid out the pieces, the will, the flash drive, Melanie's sudden aggression. He tapped his spoon against the mug. "If Melanie's bold enough to wave old documents at you, she believes she's covered. But forged seals, secret offices, missing signatures? That's pressure. And pressure makes people sloppy." Elaine slid the notary handshake photo across the table. "Can you pull this man's license? If he notarized both wills, maybe we find the weak link." Harris studied it, nodded. "Leave it with me. If there's fraud, I'll know." Back home I built my circle. Elaine was my anchor. Mara my shield in court. Harris my shadow in the alleys. But something still gnawed Melanie's confidence. She moved like someone holding a secret trump card. That night, while sorting the flash drive's folders, I found another clue. A scanned receipt with Melanie's signature for a consulting fee, dated only weeks before Daniel's death. The amount, $75,000. Labeled as final settlement. My stomach nodded. What settlement could tie my husband and his sister so closely right before he died? I emailed the file to Mara. Within minutes, she replied. "This is leverage. Do not confront her yet. Wait until we can verify with the bank." But patience was hard. Every hour felt like an invitation for Melanie to tighten her grip. At midnight, I heard movement outside. A figure near the oak tree. I grabbed the flashlight, heart pounding, and rushed out. The beam caught a man in a dark jacket, the same shadow from the downtown office. He froze, then bolted. I shouted, "Who are you?" But he vanished into the night. On the ground where he had stood lay a folded piece of paper. I picked it up with shaking hands. For words stared back at me in block letters. "Stay quiet or else." I clutched it tight. This wasn't greed anymore. This was a battle for survival. Inside, Elaine whispered, "Camilla, if we keep going, we need a plan. A real one. Step by step." I sat at the table, pinning the new note to the wall of evidence. "We make them trip. Melanie wants the house. Fine. Let her think she's close. We'll lead her to believe she's already won. Then we pull the ground out from under her feet." Elaine leaned in. "And how do we start?" I looked at Daniel's unfinished will glowing on the screen. By turning his secrets into a weapon. If Melanie thinks the past protects her, she's about to learn the past can destroy her too. The next morning, Harris called. His voice was sharp. "Camilla, I checked the notary. He's dead. Died the same week your husband updated that draft will. That means someone else stamped Melanie's version, and whoever did it committed a crime." Detective Harris's words rang in my ears long after the call ended. The notary is dead. Someone else stamped Melanie's will. That wasn't just fraud. That was the first clear thread I could pull. I sat at the kitchen table, the wall of evidence spreading wider with each pin and string. Melanie had played her move too confidently. She assumed no one would check. She assumed I was too broken to fight. She assumed wrong. Elaine paced the room. If the notary was dead, then whoever authenticated her will committed a crime. That's leverage in court, Camilla. That's the crack in her shield. Mara confirmed it when I called. Forgery tied to a deceased notary? That's explosive. But you'll need proof. Witness testimony, old records, anything that shows Daniel's intent was different. The plan began to form. Not loud. Not rushed. Step by careful step. Step 1: lock down allies. Mara agreed to represent me if this went to court. Harris would continue digging into the notary and the shadow companies. Elaine became my second set of eyes, double-checking every receipt, every file. Step 2: bait Melanie. She thrived on control, so I had to make her feel it slipping. Not by open confrontation, but by subtle moves. Papers filed quietly, meetings she wasn't invited to, whispers she couldn't track. If she panicked, she'd expose herself. Step 3: secure Daniel's intent. That unfinished will haunted me. Without a signature it was fragile, but intent mattered. If I could prove he had prepared it before his death, the court could weigh it. I needed a witness, someone who had seen him working on it. That thought led me to Father Michael, the priest who had counseled us during Daniel's illness. I visited him the next morning. The church smelled of wax and old wood. His eyes softened when he saw me. "Camilla," he said gently, "grief is a heavy cloak. You wear it bravely." "Father," I whispered, sliding the unsigned will across his desk, "did Daniel ever speak to you about updating this?" He studied it for a long time. Finally he nodded. "Yes. He came to me 2 months before his death. He said he had written you into everything. He feared leaving you unprotected. He asked me to pray that he would finish it in time." My chest tightened. Witness testimony. Proof of intent. Step 3 was no longer theory, it was real. Step 4. Prepare the reveal. If Melanie thought she could corner me with investors, lawyers, or intimidation, I would flip the stage. The evidence had to be undeniable. Photographs. Bank records. The forged seal. Her consulting fee. All of it displayed at once where no denial could survive. That night, Elaine and I spread everything across the living room floor. She circled the forged documents with red marker. I arranged photos by date. Harris dropped off his findings. Records showing Melanie's company receiving cash transfers from Daniel during his final year. "Look at this pattern," Harris said, stabbing a finger at the chart. "Every large transfer is followed by a deposit into her account within 48 hours. That's embezzlement masked as consulting." Elaine's eyes narrowed. And she thought she could scare Camilla with a fake will? We're sitting on a bomb. But I knew bombs could backfire. I needed precision. We reveal this only once. When it matters most. If we show our hand too early, she'll bury the rest of the evidence. Late that night my phone rang again. A blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. Silence at first. Then Melanie's voice, smooth and venomous. "Stop wasting energy. You'll only embarrass yourself. Daniel left you nothing because you were nothing." I held the phone steady. "If you believe that, why are you so scared?" A sharp inhale. Then the line went dead. Elaine exhaled. "She's cracking." I shook my head. "Not yet. But soon." Step 5: choose the battlefield. If Melanie thought she could steal my home, I'd make it the stage of her downfall. The house Daniel built with me, the place she wanted so badly. It would be the room where she lost everything. I picked up the photo of Daniel and Melanie at the notary's office. The forged will between them. "She thinks this paper is her weapon," I whispered. "But it's going to be her noose." The next morning, a letter arrived in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was a copy of Daniel's death certificate, and a second version of his will I had never seen before, naming a stranger as beneficiary. Someone was planting evidence, and the game had just escalated. The forged death certificate and the second will sat on my kitchen table like poison. Different handwriting, different formatting, but Daniel's name still sprawled across the page. And the beneficiary was no relative, no charity, just a man's name I had never heard before. Elaine stared at it. They're layering lies. First Melanie's will. Now this. They want to bury you in paper until you can't breathe. Detective Harris examined the seal with a magnifying glass. This isn't just sloppy forgery. This is organized. Someone with access to county records helped. Which means Melanie isn't working alone. The pivot came faster than I could brace for it. My plan had been simple. Gather, prepare, strike in court. But this new will threaten to derail everything. If the court saw conflicting documents, the case could drag for years. Melanie didn't need to win. She just needed me to run out of strength. That night, I received a court notice. An expedited hearing. Melanie had filed an emergency petition to seize control of the estate, citing fraudulent activity on my part. She claimed I was fabricating wills to stall her rightful claim. Elaine slammed the notice on the counter. She flipped the script on you. She's making you the criminal. Mara called within the hour. Her tone was sharp. Camilla, this is war. We can't just play defense anymore. If she accuses you of forgery, we hit back harder. We reveal the payments, the notary's death, everything. But it must be timed. Court is next week. You have one shot. Panic tried to creep in, but anger held it back. Then we hit her where it hurts. In front of every witness she thinks will protect her. But the pivot didn't end there. 2 days before the hearing, the house itself betrayed me. Power cut out at midnight. My freezer thawed, alarm silenced, cameras dead. Harris checked the fuse box. This wasn't an outage. Someone pulled the main switch. On the back porch lay a fresh note pinned with a knife. Stay away from court. Elaine's hand shook as she read it. Camilla, this is escalating. They want you scared enough to run. I shook my head. If I run, they win. If I fight, at least I choose the ending. The next morning, I visited the oak tree. The ground beneath looked disturbed, the soil uneven. Kneeling, I dug with my hands until my nails tore. A metal tin emerged, rusted, wrapped in tape. Inside were documents, Daniel's journals, dates, notes, even names of accounts. My breath caught. He had hidden a record of his decisions. Flipping through the pages, I found one entry dated the month before his death. Updated will complete. Melanie will fight. Camilla must be protected. Final copy sent to Harris for safekeeping. I froze. Harris, the detective, the man who had been helping me all along. Elaine leaned over my shoulder. Camilla, did Daniel mean your detective? Or another Harris? My heart pounded. If Daniel had trusted the same man now sitting at my table, then why hadn't Harris ever mentioned the will's final copy? Why did he only talk about the forged seals, never the true protection Daniel had promised? Doubt crept in, slow but sharp. When I returned home, Harris was waiting at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee as if nothing had changed. He looked up, steady eyes meeting mine. You found something, didn't you? He asked. I hid the tin behind me. Why would you think that? He smiled faintly. Because Melanie has been too calm. Which means you found the card she doesn't want you to play. Elaine stiffened. And how exactly would you know that? The room thickened with silence. Harris set his cup down, leaned forward. Camilla, listen. If you want to win, you'll have to use me. But understand this. If you go into court without absolute proof, Melanie will shred you. If you trust me, I'll get you the rest of what Daniel left. If you don't, you'll lose everything. I gripped the tin tighter, Daniel's words echoing. Final copy sent to Harris. For the first time since Daniel's death, I wasn't sure who my real enemy was. The sister-in-law tearing at my house, or the man who claimed to guard me while holding secrets of his own. The courthouse smelled of polish and old wood, but to me it smelled of battle. Every step down the marble hall tightened the knot in my chest. Elaine walked beside me, clutching the folders we had organized all night. Mara strode ahead in her dark suit, her presence sharp, every heel click like a war drum. Melanie was already there, dressed in black silk, her lips painted in triumph. She leaned against her lawyer, whispering something that made him smirk. Across the aisle, investors and distant relatives filled the benches. Some came to see a will contested. Others came to watch me fall. The judge entered. Papers rustled. The session began. Melanie's lawyer wasted no time. He rose, voice smooth, dripping false pity. Your Honor, my client has been slandered by baseless accusations. Mrs. Camilla has fabricated evidence, created false wills, and attempted to obstruct the rightful inheritance left by her late husband, Daniel. Gasps rippled through the room. I felt the stares of strangers digging into my skin, but Mara did not flinch. When the judge nodded, she rose with the calm of someone holding a loaded weapon. Your Honor, Mara said, we do not rely on slander. We rely on proof. She clicked a remote, and the first screen lit up on the wall. A photograph. Daniel and Melanie at a restaurant, documents between them. The timestamp glowed in the corner. Another photo followed. The notary handshake. Then the next, Daniel's payments to Melanie's shell company, marked as consulting fees. The room stiffened. Melanie's lawyer objected. Circumstantial. Mara's voice cut him down. Circumstantial until you see the notary's death certificate, dated months before this signature was filed. Which means the will Melanie waives in this court is fraudulent. Which means this is not inheritance, it is theft. The judge leaned forward. Is this true? Melanie's lawyer stammered. Your Honor, there must be. But Mara wasn't done. And one more thing. She nodded at me. My hands trembled as I pulled Daniel's journals from my bag. I laid them on the table, open to the entry. The words Daniel had written, shaky but clear. Updated will complete. Melanie will fight. Camilla must be protected. The courtroom held its breath. Melanie sprang to her feet. Those journals are forged, she shouted, her voice cracking. She made them up. The judge raised a hand. Sit down, Ms. Melanie. But Mara's timing was merciless. She clicked the remote again. This time video footage filled the screen. Harris had delivered it the night before. Melanie at the downtown office carrying folders, handing envelopes to the same shadowed man who had followed me. The judge's face hardened. Ms. Melanie, do you wish to explain this? Melanie's composure shattered. She turned to her lawyer, whispering frantically. He shook his head, defeated. The final blow came when Mara displayed the unsigned draft will on the projector. Your Honor, while this will lacks a signature, its existence, combined with witness testimony from Father Michael, establishes intent. Daniel sought to leave everything to his wife, Camilla. The only documents opposing this are forgeries tied to a dead notary and a web of shell companies owned by Melanie. The silence broke like glass. Relatives whispered. Investors stared, some with disgust, some with relief. Then the judge spoke. I see enough. This court recognizes that fraud has taken place. Formal investigation will proceed. Until then, Camilla retains full rights to the estate. And Melanie, prepare for criminal inquiry. The gavel slammed. The sound echoed through me like thunder. Melanie's face twisted, a mask ripped away. She lunged toward me, her words a hiss only I could hear. You think this is over? You have no idea what you've started. I didn't flinch. No, Melanie. You have no idea what I've finished. As guards pulled her back, my phone buzzed in my pocket. One message from a blocked number again. She wasn't the only one. He lied to you too. The gavel's echo had barely faded when the room erupted. Some relatives gasped in horror, others whispered. Phones already out to capture every second. Investors shifted nervously, their eyes darting from me to Melanie, calculating what this meant for their money. Melanie fought against the guard's grip, her voice sharp and jagged. She tricked all of you. Daniel never wanted her to have anything. She's a liar. Her lawyer pulled her back, hissing in her ear. Stop talking, you're digging deeper. I sat frozen, hands gripping the table. The words on my phone burned hotter than her accusations. She wasn't the only one. He lied to you too. Elaine leaned closer. Camilla, ignore it. It's just another threat. But deep down the seed of doubt sprouted. Daniel had hidden so much. Could there still be another secret? Reporters swarmed as we left the courtroom. Microphones shoved forward. Questions shouted over each other. Camilla, did you know about the forged will? Do you believe your late husband was complicit in the fraud? What's your next move now that Melanie faces criminal charges? Mara stepped in front of me, her voice like a blade. No comment. My client will speak when the time is right. But outside the chaos grew louder. Melanie's supporters screamed that justice had failed. Others called her a thief. One man threw a crumpled flyer at her as officers escorted her away. Her eyes locked with mine, hatred radiating, and I knew this wasn't the last I'd see of her. Back at the house, the oak tree swayed in the wind, its branches groaning like it carried the weight of everything Daniel had hidden. Harris was waiting by the porch, his jaw tight. That message you got, he said. We need to trace it. It didn't come from Melanie. Elaine crossed her arms. Then who? Who else would want to scare her? Harris shook his head. That's what worries me. If Daniel had other partners in these shell companies, they might not want their names exposed. I pulled the journals from my bag and set them on the table. Then we dig deeper. Daniel's secrets ended up almost destroying me. Now they'll destroy the ones who thought they could use them. The phone buzzed again. Another blocked message. Next time it won't be just paper. Walk away. Elaine's face drained of color. Camilla, they're escalating. First threats, then break-ins, now this. What if they come here? Harris checked his gun, his voice low. Let them try. I'll be here. That night I walked through the house alone. Every shadow stretched too long. Every floorboard groaned under my steps. I paused by the oak tree window, watching as headlights slowed at the curb, then drove away. The pressure was crushing. Melanie had fallen, but someone else was still pulling strings. Someone who feared exposure more than she feared prison. And now they wanted me gone. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the folders one by one. Each payment, each receipt, each photograph. Every clue pointed not just to Melanie but to a wider circle. Daniel hadn't simply betrayed me with his sister. He had built a network and I had just lit it on fire in court. Elaine placed a hand on my shoulder. Camilla, you won today. Don't let them take that from you. But I couldn't shake the words from the block number. He lied to you too. Damn. A knock rattled the front door. Slow. Heavy. When I opened it, no one stood outside, only a package on the porch. Inside lay a flash drive and a note. The truth about Daniel. Play it if you dare. The package sat on my table like a living thing. The flash drive inside was small, unmarked, ordinary. Yet it radiated danger. Elaine hovered near me, arms folded tight. Camilla, don't. Could be a trap. Malware, spyware. But I shook my head. If it holds answers, I need them. I can't keep fighting blind. Harris plugged it into his secure laptop, his jaw set. If there's poison on this, it hits me first. The screen filled with folders. No viruses. Just files labeled by years. Harris clicked one at random. Videos loaded, grainy recordings of meetings. Daniel's voice, unmistakable, echoing through the speakers. Payments routed. Keep Camilla out. She doesn't need to know. My blood ran cold. Elaine covered her mouth. Harris clicked again. Another video, clearer this time. Daniel sat at a polished table, Melanie beside him. Across from them were men I didn't recognize, their faces blurred by bad camera angles. Daniel leaned forward, his tone sharp. She thinks the consulting fees are legitimate. That's fine. Keep it that way. Once this is finalized, she'll get the house but not the accounts. Melanie will manage the rest. The room spun. My husband, the man I had defended, grieved, trusted, had plotted to cut me out. Not just Melanie. Not just fraud. He himself had orchestrated the deception. Elaine whispered. Camilla, he planned this with her. I couldn't breathe. Every memory of his smile, his promises, his soft reassurances turned to ash. The block number had been right. He lied to me too. Another file opened automatically. A scanned letter in Daniel's handwriting. If anything happens to me, control goes to Melanie. Camilla cannot handle the finances. My hand slammed the table. He thought I was weak. He thought I was just decoration. Harris closed the laptop. This changes everything. You're not just fighting Melanie anymore. You're fighting the ghost of Daniel himself. The day after the court hearing, rumors spread like wildfire. Investors pulled out of deals tied to Melanie's shell companies. Relatives whispered that Daniel had been a fraud all along. Reporters camped outside my home, hungry for the next scandal. Melanie remained in custody, but her silence screamed louder than her outbursts. She knew about the recordings. She knew the moment they hit the court, her life was over. But for me, the fallout was heavier. My grief turned to something sharper. Not only had my husband betrayed me, he had planned for me to be erased. The will wasn't just a fight over property. It was a roadmap of how little he valued me. Elaine sat across the table, eyes red. Camilla, you have to decide. Do we release these files? It'll destroy his name forever. I stared at the drive, Daniel's voice still echoing in my head. He destroyed his own name the day he decided I was nothing. Now it's my turn to decide what he's remembered for. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters called my name. They didn't know what I held in my hands. Just as I reached for the flash drive again, Harris's phone rang. He listened, then went pale. "Camilla, you need to hear this. Someone broke into county records last night. The original will, Daniel's signed one, has vanished." The county office break-in was the final twist I hadn't anticipated. The signed will, the one piece of proof that could have cemented Daniel's intentions, was gone. Melanie was locked up, yet her reach or someone else's still clawed through the city. For a moment I felt the old weight return. Fear, helplessness, the sense of being erased. But then I looked at the flash drive again. Daniel's voice, cold and calculated, still rang in my ears. "Keep Camilla out. She doesn't need to know." No, I wouldn't let his lies write my ending. The next morning, I walked into Mara's office with Harris and Elaine at my side. Cameras were outside, reporters buzzing. I held up the flash drive like a torch. "We go public," I told her. "Every file. Every recording. Every dollar transferred. Melanie's fraud. Daniel's betrayal. All of it." Mara hesitated. "Camilla, this will stain Daniel's legacy forever. People will remember him as a criminal, not a husband." I met her eyes. "He chose that legacy when he betrayed me. Now I choose mine." The press conference was electric. Screens lit up as the recordings played. Daniel's voice discussing hidden accounts, Melanie's laughter as she signed fraudulent papers, the shadow man collecting envelopes. Gasps filled the room. Reporters scribbled, cameras flashed, and investors stormed out of the building where Melanie had once boasted control. By evening, the fallout was complete. Melanie faced charges for fraud and embezzlement. Daniel's shell companies collapsed overnight. And the narrative shifted from Camilla, the grieving widow, to Camilla, the woman who exposed them all. But victory came with its shadows. At home, I sat by the oak tree staring at the horizon. Elaine poured me tea. "You did it. You turned their lies into your weapon." I nodded slowly. "Yes, but truth has a price. And I paid it by burying the man I thought I loved twice, once in death and once in truth." The weight of that realization was heavy, but it didn't crush me. For the first time, it freed me. Harris stood in the doorway, his voice steady. "Camilla, they'll still come at you. Relatives, associates, people who lost money. But you've proven you can fight. And you're not fighting alone anymore." I looked at Elaine, at Harris, at the pile of evidence that had once felt like chains. They weren't chains anymore. They were armor. I rose to my feet, the house quiet around me. Daniel thought I was nothing but a shadow at his side. Melanie thought I was just an obstacle to remove. They both forgot one thing: I don't break. I rebuild. Outside, the cameras still flashed. Reporters waited for a statement. For once, I didn't hide. I opened the door, stepped onto the porch, and faced the world head-on. "My husband and his sister underestimated me," I said firmly. "They thought betrayal would silence me. Instead, it gave me a voice. If you've ever been treated as less, if you've ever been betrayed, remember this. The truth is the strongest weapon you will ever hold. Don't be afraid to use it." The crowd erupted, flashes exploding like fireworks. And in that moment, I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the woman who turned betrayal into justice. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Because every voice deserves to be heard. And sometimes revenge isn't destruction, it's survival.